Hey there, Lisa here. Welcome to my channel. I hope you'll join me in my love of crafting and DIYs and hit that subscribe button. It's been a minute since I got to take part in a 5 under 5, so I'm super excited for the Fall Florals theme 5 under 5 this month. It is hosted each month by Crafty Cove DIY and Farm Charm Chic, and this month the guest host is Faith Chick 777's DIY by Design. All three ladies' channels will be linked in the description box, so be sure to head over to their channels and see what they've got for you today. There will also be a playlist linked with everyone else's creations as well. For DIY number 1, I started with these little wood embellishments that you can get at the Dollar Tree, and I painted them with paint markers, and somehow I lost the footage on that. I do apologize. And then I took these colored beads with all the participants' creations as well. One orange and then one I had stained. And so then I just wanted a red one and I didn't have a red one, so I am just using a paint marker to color this bead red. And then we are going to set these aside and we are going to work on making a wind chime out of terracotta pots and twine. I apologize as I keep going off camera here, but what I am doing is I am taking a length of this twine, a very long length of this twine, and I am folding it over, and then I'm taking the loop and I am going to string that through my bead and then loop it through and tie a knot. I then take and do the exact same thing on the other side of the bead. So I'm going to end up with a string going up and a string going down so that I can make my wind chime. Now, somebody who does knots or macrame or something probably has a way easier way to do this, but this is what I came up with, is to do the 2 lengths, one on each end of the string. So I've got one going both ways. And then we're going to start putting our wind chime together. Then I took and strung one of our lengths of strings through the hole, and we're going to string it going through the bottom so that our bead sits right there on the hole. So that will be what holds the clay pot in place. Then I am going to take and tie several knots so that it doesn't slip upward, so that our rope doesn't slip upward as well. And also I'm going to use knots between the beads that I put on here just for decorative purposes. So I do about 3 knots, maybe 4 on a couple of them. Next, I am going to take the orange bead and I am going to string that onto my strand there, and then I am going to tie 3 knots again. And then once I get those 3 knots tied, then I am going to thread my round bead on, and then I am going to tie 3 knots on top of it as well. See some other knots in the strand there. I was trying a couple of different ways that I wanted to do this, so just ignore those. So we're just going to do knot, bead, in that order. Our last bead in the process is the red, so we'll string the red bead on, and then just like with the others, do 3 knots on top of that. Once that was done, I just went a little length up on the twine, and then I just tied a knot and then cut off the excess. Correction, it looks like I tied 3 knots and then cut off the excess. Okay, now working with our strands that go down, we are going to thread it down through the bottom of the pot, and then we're going to thread it up to where we want it in relation to the other pot. And I wanted the pots to actually be the wind chime. I want them to hit each other and make the sound, and so I do it quite a bit up inside there. I then took another bead and we are going to slide that up inside the second pot to keep it in place. And then I am going to tie a series of several knots to keep the bead in place. Now, this proved to be a little bit tricky because you almost have to tie the knots up inside the pot. So prepare to practice your patience a little bit here. And with our final little pot, I'm going to do the same exact process. So we are going to string it on, get it to about the length that we want it dangling down inside the other pot, and then place our bead on and situate it where we want it to stop there. And then once again, we are going to tie a series of 3 to 4 knots just to keep that bead in the location that we want it. I wanted to add something to the little dangle down here, and so that is what we were going to use the wood embellishments for. I did go back and do paint both sides and do 2 of each design on the embellishments. So that is what I am doing here. I am just doing the second set, and then I simply super glued them to the string where I liked the look of them. I then took and just tied a knot at the bottom. Correction, I tied 3 knots at the bottom, and then I am just going to cut off the excess, and then I just frayed the ends just a little bit. I decided to paint a little design on the terracotta pot, so I took and found this mum in Google Images and printed it out on my inkjet printer, and then I am just going to take and transfer this onto the pot. You can definitely use carbon paper or something, but I just always use the pencil trick where you are just going to color on the back. You're going to shade the back of the image and then use that as your carbon. Once I got the back all good and shaded, I took some masking tape and just taped the image down to the pot. Then using a ballpoint pen, you just go around and trace the outline of your image, and it transfers it onto the pot. And voila, there it is. You probably can't see it on camera, actually. It's just real light. And so then I just take paint markers and color it in. I always do the outline first, and then I go back in and color it in. And that is going to be it for this DIY. For DIY number 2, I am going to take this wood round, and then I have this burlap ribbon that I have previously stiffened with a solution with a mixture of Mod Podge and water. And you can also use, a fabric stiffener or Elmer's glue will work as well, just so that these are a little bit stiffer and sort of stay put rather than flop around. And we are going to make a flower out of this, and so I am just taking and cutting out my flower petals. Next, I take this wood round and I am just applying some antique wax with a baby wipe onto just one side. Next, I take and lay out my flower petals, and it looks like I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them. And I lay them, so I lay my brown side down, and then I lay my flower petals down, and then I take another wood round that I didn't stain or anything, just left raw, and I basically sandwich the petals between them and glue that in place with some hot glue. So then I take and I sort of bend up the petals just a little bit. I was going to use this on a sign or something. I wasn't real sure when I was making it. I just thought it would make a really cool flower. And as I'm looking at it there, I decide, you know what? I am going to make this a candle holder. So I pull out a battery operated candle, and I am going to take some of this tissue paper from the Dollar Tree, and I am just going to cut out one of the flowers. I then take and fussy cut that one flower that I have cut out of the tissue paper. With a hole punch, I punch a hole in the middle of the flower. I put the flower over the flame on the candle, and we are going to Mod Podge this down. So I apply Mod Podge underneath the flower and then get that all good and stuck down, and then apply a coat of Mod Podge over the top, making sure to get those sides Mod Podged down along the edge of the candle. And that is it for this project. For DIY number 3, we are going to take one of these blank pumpkin forms from the Dollar Tree, and I am going to take some Mod Podge and apply a coat of Mod Podge just on about the bottom half of it. So I do one nice even coat, and then we are going to set this aside to dry. Next, I take this little wooden embellishment that I picked up from the Dollar Tree. They come in a pack of 3 or 4, or is it 6? I guess I'm just really not sure. I had them all poured out in a thing and not in the package anymore. So I take that, and then a furniture marker that also come from the Dollar Tree, and I am just giving this a coat of that mahogany color. I then take this tissue paper that I picked up off Amazon, and I lay it down over where I had placed the Mod Podge, and then I take a piece of parchment paper and lay it over it. And then with my little mini press, you can use a little mini iron or whatever you got, or even a regular sized iron. I take and I am going to iron it down, and just nice pressure, slow, and this reactivates that Mod Podge and sticks down the tissue paper very nice and wrinkle free. Then I take my scissors and I am going to trim the excess tissue paper off. And once that is done, I am going to take a fingernail file and I am going to sand the rest off. And you sort of sand in a downward motion, and it just takes that tissue paper right off and gives you a nice clean edge. I take a piece of this fall ribbon and I am just going to glue it down along the edge here. Next, I take the Hello Fall and I am just going to hot glue it down where I want it on the round as well. Lastly, I take these florals and I just cut off a couple of picks, and then I'm going to trim off the ends and lay them out the way that I want them on the pumpkin. And then I am just going to do a couple dots of hot glue in just a couple of spots to glue these down. And that is it for this project. For DIY number 4, I am going to take this little pumpkin holder that I picked up from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to take antique wax on a baby wipe and apply it to both sides of the pumpkin. Then I am going to cut down and add a piece of floral foam in the middle section there. You could see the floral foam through the slits in the wood, so I took a piece of construction paper and slid it down inside. I later changed the color and used cardstock, but first we are going to add florals. These bouquets take me forever to put together, but they're really fun. So basically, I just take a whole bunch of floral picks that I had on hand. These all came from the Dollar Tree or possibly Temu, and I am just cutting them down to the sizes that I want, and then I am going to place them inside until I get a bouquet that I like to look at. You'll also see there that I did cut that cardstock for a different piece to put in the front of the bouquet. I add a little bit of Spanish moss to each side to cover the floral foam where you could see it, and then I also take and hot glue some of it around the bottom of the pumpkin. And that is it for this project. For our 5th and final DIY, we are going to give resin a shot. Now, I tried resin this winter, but it was too cold in my basement, and so it did not turn out well. So this is my second try with resin. So basically, this resin says to mix 2 equal parts of bottle A and bottle B. So that is what I am doing here, is trying to get them as equal as I can. I'm sorry I keep going off camera. I'm out in my sunroom and I'm not used to filming out here. So I am going to put on gloves. They always recommend gloves as well as protective wear for your face. This is a low odor stuff that I bought on Amazon when it was on sale, and so it wasn't too bad. But I am going to now start to mix them, and this says to mix for 3 to 5 minutes. I suppose all resin is just a little bit different, so be sure to read the bottles of what you have. And with the beauty of editing, 3 to 5 minutes is over, so we're going to go out to the flower garden and pick a black-eyed Susan to use for our project. So I took the flower in and I am just trying to smash it down. I am realizing now that my coaster mold that I have is actually not going to be thick enough, and the middle section of the flower is going to stick up. But I decided to give this a try anyways. I just really wanted to work with this resin in the heat and see how it works, and I decided that this could be a paperweight, or I may use it for another craft at some time. So just FYI, make sure that your mold is deep enough. I suppose I could always go and build this up and re-pour over the top and get it thicker. But like I said, I'm kind of liking the idea of using it as a paperweight or something else. Just, It's my first successful resin project, other than, the fact that it doesn't fit. Okay, back to the project. So anyways, what I am doing now is I am just taking our mixture that we had mixed for 3 to 5 minutes, and I am pouring it in the mold and leveling it out the best that I can. Now you're going to get bubbles. It seems that I always get bubbles. Anyways, I guess this is only my second time, but there were definitely bubbles both times. So this time I'm in a warmer climate. You want to be warm. And so I am taking a barbecue lighter, and basically this goes across and you sort of run it across. If you're going to touch the resin, make sure you touch it really fast and you run it across, and this pops those bubbles for you. So that is what you see me doing there. Then place in our flour, and you just sort of want to place it until it sticks. Now we are going to let this set for 3 hours, and then we are going to pour our other layer on the top. From what I have read, this helps keep the flour from floating in the resin or floating up to the top. And then I am to cover it while it dries for the 3 hours. And then here I am back after the 3 hours is up, and I am pouring another mixture that I had made of the A and B mixture over the top. Now, of course, so we've talked about this, the middle of the flour is going to stick up, but I go ahead and put resin on it so that it's protected. Same as how we did the first layer, we are going to take our barbecue lighter and pop all of those little air bubbles. And the last step is to be patient and wait for it to cure for 24 hours. All right, let's take a close-up look at our 5 projects. First of all, we have our little wind chime. Next up, we have our little bouquet of fall florals. Then we have our little Hello Fall pumpkin, our sunflower candle holder and candle, and here it is all lit up. And then finally we have our Black-Eyed Susan in resin. You guys will have to let me know if you have a favorite and which one it is. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great day.